Man, oh man. Whew. So I guess we got some surprising news. I'm sure everybody's already heard. The fact that Terrence Crawford is no longer fighting Earl Spence and he's moving on to fight Venetian, Mediterranean, whatever his name is, on some off-brand app. I think it's BLK Prime, something like that. And that's the direction that he's chosen to go. Um, According to Earl Spence's side, I guess Earl Terrence Crawford was given a contract to sign a couple of weeks ago, and once he got that particular contract, I guess it seems as if at the last minute there was certain things he wanted to revise, certain issues that he had as well that he still wanted to change. So they went ahead and changed those three things that he had an issue with, and they sent the contract back to him as well. And he was holding on to that contract for over 2 weeks, and hadn't gotten back to them. Obviously didn't sign it, and I guess at that point they knew something was going on. So they kind of let it out, be known into the media about the fact that he did have this particular contract, and they weren't sure if he really wanted to do this fight. And then the information happens the same day where they confirm from Coppinger, the same person been putting out all this these stories the last couple of months, that he's fighting on this app on December 10th. And it was no sources, like, no, he said he got this directly from Terrence Crawford. The only part I think he put sources on was the fact that Terrence Crawford is, quote, getting $10 million getting 10 eight figures for the fight, which is, I don't know. I don't know about that one. It kind of doesn't make any sense with the way that structure is set up. But that to the side for now. So the main kind of thing is that people are kind of saying, oh well, he wanted to get a fight in at the end of the year, so he's getting his fight in at the end of the year. Cool. Once that's done, then we can go ahead and have that fight. We can see about getting this fight with Earl Spence done. And I don't think people truly understand the ramifications of what just happened with this particular situation. You have PBC, who's 100% focused on doing this fight with Terrence Crawford. They put everything on hold. A lot of different events that were supposed to have happened, a lot of fighters that were supposed to have fought at the end of this year, this last quarter of the year, none of them have dates. Because this is the type of fight that's of the magnitude where once this fight is done, then everything else gets put around it. Kind of like even when they were doing like certain fights with Canelo Alvarez, once they were negotiating with Canelo Alvarez, everything else kind of got put on hold until that got done. When Floyd Mayweather was, getting things, when it was negotiating, everything kind of got put on hold until that got done. If you have somebody like Deontay Wilder, if he's going to be part of a major event, everything's pretty much going to be on hold until that fight is done. So, but they were, they kept at it. They didn't get off of it. They didn't say, you know what, it's taking too long, we're done with this. Nothing. They say steadfast. They said focus on getting that particular fight done. Earl Spence wanted this fight, and they were going to do everything that they could to make it happen. And little did they know that Terrence Crawford's over here. He's actually negotiating with somebody else. He's setting up another fight, and this isn't. You don't do a fight like this. A brand new company. They got a date. They got a purse. They got an opponent. All that didn't happen in 1-2 days. They were definitely negotiating this for months, for absolute months. So it comes into question, did he even really want to fight Earl Spence to begin with? But when you find this out, and then to make it even worse, they didn't intend on telling you. You were supposed to find this out next week, because I guess Terrence Crawford and his team on a YouTube channel were supposed to announce that this fight was going to happen on next Wednesday. So they weren't even going to tell Earl Spence. So now you put Earl Spence and PBC into a position where, number one, they've been having all these fights on hold. All the particular guys who that check they're supposed to get at the end of the year, they didn't get it, or they're not getting it, because now their fights are being pushed until the first quarter of next year. Now you got Earl Spence, who could have had another fight and made millions of dollars. You now put him into a situation where he could possibly lose $7+ million because he's not fighting this year. Because he was all focused, completely focused on getting this fight done with you, getting everything set and done with you. negotiating in good faith and thinking that you're doing the same, you know. And once all this has finally happened, it's like, okay, now, you know, Earl Spence has to now make moves, try to figure out if he can even get a fight at the end of this year. If he can't, then he's just lost. This year, that's $7 to $10 million that are just gone, that he's never going to be able to get. Now you put him into a position where negotiating with you actually has cost him money, has cost him millions of dollars. And then on top of it, why would he want to necessarily deal with you again? Why would he want to put himself into a position to talk with somebody that he knows doesn't negotiate in good faith? Something that took you 5 to 6 months that you're trying to do this. And there's a big possibility now that Earl Spence, if he fights at the welterweight division again, that his next fight is the last fight at the welterweight division. He might go ahead. I could see him fighting Stanionis, who's been sitting on the sidelines, taking step aside money so we could get these unifications, and he was going to do it again so we could get undisputed. I could see him maybe fighting him, then moving on. I could see him just moving up to 154 pounds for his next fight. And he moves up to 154 pounds for his next fight. All the leverage that you had as far as getting this fight done, and having any kind of favor towards you, any leverage that you had is completely gone. You no longer, that belt, that trinket that you have around your waist no longer means anything to him, because now he's at 154 pounds. He's at 154 pounds now. That doesn't mean anything. Him wanting to get undisputed is gone. That leverage is gone. And you put him to a space where just because monetarily he lost so much money off of you, it might just in general not even, that same eagerness to deal with you is not going to be there. So then they're not going to sit there for months negotiating and talking with you again. You've cost PBC pretty much money. Once you show these colors to PBC, sometimes they just don't deal with you. Ask Demetrius Andrade how long it took for them to even try to deal with him again. And when he kind of brushed him off again, that was pretty much been it. They've been done with him ever since. They've been pretty much done with him ever since. So it's kind of like, you're putting yourself into a very bad situation, because at the end of the day, all the fights that you want are with these people. Besides Earl Spence, you're talking about Charlo, Ennis, Ellis, Ugas, Thurman, Stanionis. Everybody's pretty much there. So these are the people that you're going to want to deal with as far as if you want to have meaningful fights that are going to bring you in, monetary gain. These are the people you're going to want to deal with. I understand, let's say you are getting paid what they're saying you are getting paid. That's for one fight. That's one fight. They're not going to do business. They're not paying you that same amount of money again. They're not going to just put themselves into a space where they're taking, $8 million hits, because they're going to be in the red about if they pay you that $10 million, they're going to be in the red about $8-9 million. They're not making money off this fight at all. You couldn't generate pay-per-views when you're fighting no names on ESPN. And if they are, quote, giving you that amount of money, which I don't believe, but if they do that, they're going to see that, this was not a good investment for us at all. It wasn't a good investment. And they're going to they're going to move on to whatever it is. And you're going to be stuck. When you go back, hey, I want to do the Earl Spence fight, and they're just not wanting to deal with you. Or if they want to deal with you, it's like, all right, now that you've come back, number one, we're keeping this short. It's going to be like a week, 2 weeks when it comes to negotiations. That's number one. And number two, we're going by the numbers. That leverage that you had, that thing that you had around your waist that we needed, you don't have that anymore. So what are your numbers? What are your pay-per-view numbers? What are your gates? These are ours. What are yours? And we're going by that. Oh, you don't like it? That's cool. Goodbye. We'll talk to you later. And they'll just move on. If they're even willing to do that. If they're even willing to do that. So it might, seem like it's nice. People, hey, he's getting paid $10 million. Yeah, you might be getting paid $10 million, but at the same time, you probably cost yourself, who knows, 40, 50 plus million by doing that type of business. Not to the amount of money you were going to make off the first Earl Spence fight. If you won that fight, the amount of money you're going to make off the second fight. And then fights after that you could have still done with the PBC. Like Manny Pacquiao, when he came to the PBC, he got a $20 million offer. They were the only ones who were willing to give him $20 million. But let's say Okay, he had a $30 million offer somewhere else, straight cash. $35 million, and last minute he effed them, and he went and got that. It was a terrible event. They didn't do any major numbers. They decided they weren't going to work with him again. He tried to come back, and PBC's like, nah, we're good. We're doing these unifications after these we're going to just do these unifications over here. We got the boss that we want. We're going to have just Keith Thurman go ahead and fight, Earl Spence, because he wants to fight him out. And they just kept everything else in-house. Now Manny Pacquiao loses okay, you got that first bag, but you lost a $20+ million Keith Thurman bag. You were supposed to fight Earl Spence. He didn't fight Earl Spence, but he still got a $20 million bag. So he got $20 million from that. That's $60+ million already. That's $60 million plus upside. And then on top of all of that, you also got into a relationship with them where your fighters are now fighting on PBC as well now. And you're getting money off of that as well. Because now you have this working relationship with them where you're making money with them after boxing, after you were done fighting yourself. So you could make a move where monetarily up front it seems like it's a great move, but long term it's just a bad move. And that's if that fight even goes through that he has set up. Because I have questions when it comes to that. Just I don't know. If that even goes through. He set himself up into a bad space, and some people are trying to, making excuses for him and give him excuses, but it's going to be a difficult one because now things have changed. Now that the negotiations are over, information is not going to start coming out from the other side. It's not going to be a one-sided thing where you're able to just kind of put out information and the other side staying quiet because they're really trying to get this deal done. Then information is going to come out. The fact that he had a contract in his hand that he didn't sign, that information came out. The fact that he's had it for weeks, that came out. I'm sure it's also going to come out that they're going to give him upfront money. I'm sure it's going to come out too. He was going to get back end money because that's how PBC does their things. All the stuff that we were hearing, we can't even necessarily, go by it just due to the fact that the people who are putting out the information have a working relationship with him and the people who are doing this event. So it puts us in a space now, the things that have come out from certain people, we can't necessarily believe it anymore because they have conflicting interests when it pertains, to this particular situation. And then Coppinger himself, clearly now we can see where he was getting all his source information directly from Terence Crawford. Conflicting, contradictory information, by the way. And I just think as the next months go along, next weeks go along, it's not necessarily gonna look good for him. And I see Earl Spence going completely another direction, obviously having a much more spectacular fight that revenue-wise does a whole lot more than this particular fight that Terence Crawford is doing. And then I see him probably going on to fight somebody else and continuing his career. So I guess we'll see what happens. But disappointing, I'll just say, is very disappointing. Just knowing that this man had this contract in his hands and he decided not to sign it. And he had a contract in his hands, but the whole time he was dealing with somebody else. It looks like he was probably leveraging, what was going on over there to get what he got over here. That's what he was doing the entire time. Just like previously, he leveraged, all the talk and everything that was going on with him and Earl Spence and all these different entities that were talking about it. They did that to say, look at Bob Arum. Hey, you see the interest in me. You see how the people hyped up about this, in order to get the deal that he got with Top Rank. But after that deal was over with, Bob Arum didn't want to deal with him anymore. Like, we are not doing that type of deal again because it was not lucrative for us. We can do a fight by fight if you want to, but that's about it. And now we're here, And again, we'll see what happens, but I'll say it again, very disappointing, very, very disappointing, that things have come to this. And the next couple of weeks, ain't gonna be pretty. Like, subscribe, share, I'm out.